Woodstock Cricket have been producing award-winning cricket bats matched with their classy soft goods, luggage and accessories. Woodstock Cricket really do tick all the boxes. Get in touch with Woodstock Cricket at info@woodstockcricket.co.uk.
Good morning and welcome to the third day here at Lord's, Middlesex and Surrey, third round of the 2021 County Championship. Adam Collins with you, Isabel Westbury with me, and what a wonderfully positioned game heading into the second half of it. Surrey, 9 runs in arrears. They've lost 3 wickets in their second innings, but Rory Burns, the England opener, is there on 54. Alongside him, the England wicketkeeper, Ben Foakes, on 16. It means that this first hour, cliche as it is to say off the top, is so very important. It could dictate how the weekend plays out.
You stole my cliche. I was going to go in for that first hour line. But it's true. And I think we talked a little bit about the conflicted interests of Middlesex fans yesterday of wanting to see Ollie Pope do well, Burns perhaps. But I think Foakes as well. I feel as though, this is good for England at this stage in the season when you've got going into May, a month before the first test here at Lord's, seeing Rory Burns score a century is a good thing in that respect. But equally, 9 runs behind, 2 days to play. Who knows what the pitch is going to do in the fourth innings? I don't know. Where would you stand? Where do your loyalties lie? I think what we do know is that it could be a very intriguing day's play. Yeah,
I think putting loyalties to one side, it's just about having another close, absorbing contest here at headquarters across the weekend as we did in round one. Yes, with Burns there batting fluently last night, 54 from 102 deliveries. Foakes joined him when it was 79 for 3. They made their way to 105 for 3. That deficit when they started was 114 after Middlesex were all out for 268 yesterday with Sam Robbins, top scoring. Sam Gubbins. Let's try again.
Almost.
Sam Robson, a combination of the two. Top scoring with 95. And Robbie White, 72. Their stand of 133 was absolutely crucial so far, the biggest of the match. And I think that when you look at this first hour or first session, there's the 2 England players, and they're followed by Smith, Clark and Clark, 3 of the harder-hitting lower middle-order players from Surrey. If they can eliminate the deficit and bring in those 3 batsmen at 6, 7 and 8 with a decent and healthy lead, it might give them the chance to put the foot down, which will change the complexion of this game.
Yeah, I think anything in the margin of 150 is going to be a really awkward total to chase. And as you say, once you've got to the 9, you reset. And with 2 in batters, well, on a sunshiny day like today, they could really pull ahead. Yeah, it's a good day to bat. Another cloudless day here at Lord's. The other side of the equation for Middlesex, if they can get rid of one or both of the England internationals and get a look at that lower middle order early on, while the ball is still relatively hard and new. They've bowled 35 overs with it in the final session yesterday, but it was still shaping around in the last half an hour before the close on evening too. It gives them the chance to skittle Surrey in the space of, say, 3 hours, let's say, and give themselves a pretty manageable fourth innings chase. Well, that's it. You look at the sort of the spearhead attack of Roland Jones and Murtagh. Between them, they've bowled 20 overs, and then they've had a nice night's rest. They've had a good sort of innings rest as well. If you think about, 268, the Middlesex scored relatively slowly as well. So you feel for the sort of more experienced, older members of the team, that's a really much needed night off. But then also, much hope in the fact that it was both Bamber and Anderson getting key wickets, Stoneman and Pope each. So they've got good support and all to play for in that respect as well.
Yeah, looking forward to watching Luke Holman across the weekend. We haven't seen much deterioration in terms of the pitch so far, but he was turning it considerably yesterday. Not only his leg break, but the one that goes the other way, which beat Rory Burns a couple of times.
And I think Amaverdi as well. I mean, again, from a neutral position, looking at him fourth wicket spinning, he didn't really bowl that much at all in the first innings. It could be really exciting.
Before play today, down at pitchside, we caught up with Robbie White, who batted so nicely yesterday for 72. Here's what he had to say. Robbie White, 73 last week, 72 yesterday. Nice start to the season.
Yeah, it's been nice to have a couple of scores and contribute to the team. I think, myself and Robbo came together in quite a tricky position on day one, so it was nice to put on a good partnership there and put us in a decent position, and the game set up really nicely coming into day three.
Yeah, coming in at a really tough time at 16 for 3. What was the mindset between you and Robbo out there in that challenging period late on day one?
Yeah, it was a tough period. I think we just wanted to soak up the pressure. They were obviously coming really hard and wanted to sort of run through us there. So it was great to be out there with Robbo. He's obviously a really experienced guy and someone who's been out there a number of years and has had great experience. So it's good to speak with him and sort of work through that partnership, especially to begin with, just to try and soak some balls up and get some overs in their legs and really try and cash in later on.
Yeah, and it must be a confidence builder making runs both last week and this week against international quality attacks.
Yes, it's been great. I mean, we're up against some great opposition, and it's been a really tough sort of start for us playing against some great sides. So it's nice to be out there and trying to get some time in the middle and putting some runs on for the team, which we desperately need.
And the exciting opportunity for you to not just play in the side, but establish yourself as one of the senior players through the course of this season?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great opportunity for all of us. We're probably trying to find some results. It's been a tough start, so I'm just trying to help the team where I can and trying to support Robbo. He's obviously had a great start to the year, so it's time for some of us other guys to try and really put our name in the hat and put some runs on the board and try and get us to those totals that we really want to see as a batting group.
And after obviously 2 losses to start the season, it makes today all the more important. The game finally balanced. What's the conversation like in the dressing room before today?
Yeah, I think the game set up really nicely. I think we're in a stronger position at the start of the day, but obviously they've got a really strong batting lineup and their 2 guys in the middle are obviously top players. So I think the first hour is really important this morning. Hopefully if we can get a couple of wickets, that puts us in a really strong position. But it set up really nicely, and I think we've just got to keep doing what we've been doing the first 2 days, which has set us in really good stead. And hopefully, we have a couple of good hours this morning, and that'll set us nicely to hopefully knock off the runs when that comes around.
Robbie White, well played yesterday, and good luck for the rest of the match.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Cheers.
Robbie White there with us before play today. Izzy, you can see there's that real excitement in the Middlesex camp that having started the season poorly, they do have a big opportunity today. Sure, there are 2 England internationals out there at the moment. They have to dislodge them early on to really give themselves a chance of running through Surrey in a hurry. But they aren't thinking of it in those terms. They're seeing it more along the lines of what a chance to get the first win of the season.
Yeah, that's it. It's a chance to make a mark, I think. And what was most exciting seeing yesterday was the combination of the more experienced Sam Robson, he's now 31, and then Robbie White, who's coming in to really cement his place in the middle order of this Middlesex batting lineup. I think he's very aware as well that middle order of Middlesex's batting is probably its weakest point in any discipline. So yes, excitement, yes, that acknowledgement of responsibility, but also, as you suggest, that sense of that sniff of a first win in this county championship.
They're keen down there at pitchside. The Middlesex fielders are all ready to cross the rope in front of the pavilion. I think we just heard the bell go to our left a moment ago, so not long before play. We'll resume here at Lord's on the 3rd morning. Beautiful Saturday in North London, Surrey. The visitors 105 for 3, so Burns 54. Folks 16. The wickets to fall so far for the visitors. Mark Stoneman was leg before wicket to Ethan Bamber for 2. Hashim Amla leg before wicket to Toby Roland Jones for a golden duck. Roland Jones's first delivery in the 2nd innings. An excellent piece of captaincy, which we reflected upon yesterday, Izzy, that despite the fact that Bamber took a wicket in his 3rd over, they immediately spun Roland Jones into the attack from the pavilion end and earned that immediate reward. Hashim Amla out for a duck, bagging a pair. Then Ollie Pope was the 3rd wicket to fall. Martin Anderson found his outside edge on 32, which was ever so important because we saw Pope going through the gears. He found the boundary on 6 occasions, and had he been there at the close of play, I suspect we'd be having a different kind of conversation.
Oh, absolutely. And just looking at the Middlesex team this morning as they were warming up, they're on the sidelines now, there was a lot of positivity, optimism within the team. They were, joking around. They were enjoying their cricket. They were enjoying being together. They feel, not so much wronged, but that they can do so much more than the results have suggested so far. And today is possibly that day where they can really swing it for them, both in the literal and the proverbial sense.
Today's play is brought to you by Woodstock Cricket, our sponsors on the Middlesex Enhanced live stream. Thank you to them as we see the Middlesex team make their way to the middle to take their positions. Behind them, Rory Burns and Ben Folkes, resuming on 54 and 16 respectively. The first job for Surrey to eliminate the rest of this deficit. 9 runs to go. First over will be from the pavilion end today, and it'll be sent down by Ethan Bamber, as 1 for 22 from his 5 overs in the final session yesterday. As we say, picked up Mark Stoneman and looked really good, especially in that first spell with the new ball. Yes, it was the wicket-taking delivery, but it was the way that he bowled to Stoneman in the 2 overs leading up to it, moving away down the slope and then bringing one back up with his natural arc. Nice side-on action, and he won the decision of umpire Bainton, who has his arms stretched out at the moment, readying himself, as is Rory Burns, crouching down, going through his final warm-up exercises. 2 slips, the catching men, as umpire Bainton calls play and Bamber sets off. The start of the weekend here at Lord's, day 3. Burns, first ball, caught behind. Ethan Bamber does it. Rory Burns snicks through to the wicket-keeper Simpson, who makes no mistake moving to his left. The best possible start for Middlesex. Surrey are 105 for 4, and Burns does not add to his overnight score. He's gone for 54.
Shelve it. Shelve everything that I said about conflicted interests. That is an incredible start to the morning for Middlesex. I mean, you can't ask for anything more. The youngster as well. Bamber onto it. Burns, the most experienced, the England opener. Well, they swung it first ball.
Everything we said about Bamber last night, the way he was able to bowl to the left-handed Stoneman from over the wicket. He changed it up from the first innings where he started around the wicket at the 2 southpaws, but natural angle across the left-hander. How often do we see it? Hits the seam, kisses the edge. And what a response from the Middlesex fielders as well. They know how big that is.
How often do we talk about the body language, the approach of players in professional sport? And quite often I think we overemphasize it. It's almost as if, come on, these are professionals. They can do it any day of the week. They can do it on a cold, windy night at Stoke. So that's what how the saying goes, right? But the way in which Middlesex today approached today, entered the field, sort of felt that sense of optimism. It was almost as if that first ball was inevitable.
Ethan Bamber, what a contribution he's been making through the course of this season. Played just 1 game in the Bob Willis Trophy last year. As he said himself, some tough times for him through the course of 2020, but 6 wickets against Somerset. And here again at Lord's, does his best work from the pavilion end. And now gets a look at Jamie Smith with his second ball of the day. Bamber, proof that you don't need to bowl at 90 mile an hour to make your mark in this competition. Consistent, natural variation. Can move it both ways. A really impressive young cricketer in this system. So the right-handed Smith facing his first ball over the wicket. 2 slips. And defending out towards the onside.
Yeah, a switch now from the experience and the international pedigree of Burns. But Smith, of course, is a man in form. He's somebody that scored runs last week. He 100'd alongside Ollie Pope. So not someone to be dismissed easily, you'd have thought. Just 19 in the first innings. Tim Murtagh bowling him.
Again, past the outside edge. So moving away from Burns, down the slope, and then up the slope to Smith with that natural outswinger that he bowls. When we talk about natural variation, that's it right there. Keeping a nice, high, proud seam. And also, well played Peter Hanscom, who threw the ball to Bamber for the first over this morning. That's on the leg stump. Do they get a first run for the day? They do, out towards mid-wicket. Bit of a bobble there from Holman. 106 for 4. Smith off the mark. 8 runs in arrears, the visitors. But yes, I suppose, Izzy, first over of the day, you can understand why Hanscom may have gone to Toby Rowland-Jones from the pavilion end. The more senior of the two bowlers, the quicker of the two bowlers as well.
Yeah, it's funny. That's what I had assumed overnight when they've had that rest. They are he is the spearhead of the attack, the one that you'd assume. But I think again, Hanscom, I wonder. Well, we'll see what he does in the second innings. But can you have a bigger contrast in your individual performance to that with the captaincy hat on?
Oh, again past the edge, a conventional outswinger. Really classy start this from Bamber. Used to be the idea that the first over of a day for a seamer, just limber up and get through it and go up the gears in the second and third and fourth overs of a spell, but not now. These young athletes can really charge in from the outset. That's what Bamber is, an athlete. Goes all day. Energizer bunny. And he finishes where he started, right on the money. A wicket from the first over on the third morning, courtesy of Ethan Bamber. First ball, if you're joining the coverage, first ball, Rory Burns edged behind, taken by Simpson, removed 454. So from 105 for 3, it's 106 for 4 after 1 over.
An energizer bunny rather than a bunny hugger, which seems to be the expression of the day currently.
Is this an internet thing that I'm missing?
No, it's a Boris Johnson thing.
Oh,
but
okay.
Obviously we don't talk about politics here, so
No,
I'll just
we
leave
don't.
it at that.
I studiously avoided what was going on last night on that front. I saw the blog post and thought, I'll leave that alone. I'm going to watch something else.
I think Energizer Bunny is the one we'll opt for.
Okay. We'll shoulder arms for everything else. So it's going to be Tim Murtagh from the nursery end. No wickets yesterday, but 11 overs, just 19 runs conceded. He played a big role in making sure that Surrey didn't get away, especially when Burns was trying to put the foot down in the last half an hour or so. Three slips. Here comes Murtagh. First ball of his day, as you'd expect. Smith knocking it on the head. But yes, I suppose with Hanscom, maybe it's that he hasn't played with this group before. He's coming to this with fresh eyes, that he does, or he's able, rather, to make decisions that aren't necessarily with convention. What we saw yesterday, taking Bamber off, which was a masterstroke.
It's funny because I think that was sort of the chat around when Stuart Law arrived at the club.
Oh, there's the edge early on. It's gone straight to ground, taken by Sam Robson on the bounce.
Yeah, there was a feeling that he could come in. So Middlesex, in a way, it's sort of almost become institutionalised. There was a lot of people who'd gone up through the whole system, and in many ways, that's a real benefit. But having someone like Stuart Law come in and sort of see it from the outside, okay, you could argue that it hasn't really the results haven't come to fruition over the last couple of years. Difficult last season, of course, with COVID. But yes, that's the benefit. That's what the role of the experienced pro is supposed to provide.
Yeah, I suppose someone like Stuart Law, who has so much experience in the county game as a player and in the international game as a coach as well. Of course, he was with the West Indies men until he took this job here. as far as having that broader sense of what goes on in the county game, and then picking up a talented squad and trying to mould it over the period of a couple of years.
Now, Adam, I don't want to sort of suggest that wickets and first ball of a day's play wickets are like London buses.
Ooh, elsewhere, is it?
But Leicestershire's Rishi Patel is also out first ball to Overton, playing for Somerset. So they've got, it was the first ball of the day. That's crazy. I can't believe that's ever happened before. Well, I mean, that's a ridiculous stat to try and find out, but
well, don't doubt the ability of those in our YouTube comments. Of course, you can be part of that all day.
Well, thank you
to source that information. I think there'll be someone there who can find out.
Well, I was going to say thank you to Stephen de Betancourt on the YouTube comments for pointing that out.
Smith gets his second run, front of the square leg umpire. 107 for 4. They're still 7 runs away from parity, Surrey.
But I mean, you think about how often the first ball does fall at the beginning of a day's play. Not often, you'd imagine, but to have 2 matches?
Yeah, well, let's. I suppose 9 games happening simultaneously, as often will be the case in the championship. Yeah, it's the sort of stat that our Test match special colleague Andrew Sampson will be able to find out.
1 second, I think there might be another one.
A third.
I'm gonna have. Let me just check this up.
You keep researching. I'll watch Tim Murtagh, who completes his first over of the morning. 107 for 4, so a wicket and 2 runs since the resumption. Folkes 16. Smith on 2. Back to young Ethan Bamber. So is there a third game as well? What's happened at...
That's absurd. Zach Crawley's gone first ball.
So the 2 England players who are beyond 50 overnight, and the entire country was saying, gee, wouldn't it be good if these 2 guys went on and posted 3 figures, have both been dismissed with the first ball of the day. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah. First ball of the day. Unbelievable.
Who picked up his wicket?
Good question.
You keep looking. It's Bamber. Nice forceful drive from Smith, but straight to cover.
Lancashire's Tom Bailey. So they've really got Kent up against the wall there. Lancashire 525, Kent 90 for 5 in reply, having lost Crawley off the first ball of the day. This is absolutely nuts, frankly.
Well, I mean, twice, I think, that's the sort of thing I can imagine has happened from time to time. But thrice, in 3 games out of the 9 being played, wicket first ball, that really is something. An eventful start to the weekend in the county championship. We'll see that man, Toby Rowland-Jones, in action soon enough, I'm sure. Almost certainly following Bamber from the pavilion end. So yes, I think the SOS goes out to Andrew Sampson, our colleague. If you can include him in a tweet and tell him that I've paged him, he'll.
Yeah, well, no, we're paging
soon.
him.
The bat signal will go up. I emailed Andrew with an obscure factoid last week and asked him to check it out for me, and he was back in about quarter of an hour with the answer. And of course, he loves the county championship. Indeed, he might be watching us right now. From South Africa, where he lives.
Yeah, the time zones are kind on that one.
They are, very much so. Oh, shout for leg before. Looked high. Bainton turns it down. High and even a fraction leg side as well. Bamber was the most enthusiastic of the appealers, as is his prerogative as a seamer. Smith was back in the crease, but yes, that wasn't hitting.
Too much excitement for this time in the morning.
Well, I was very excited coming into the ground. We always are. It's a privilege to work at Lords and love covering the county championship. But I think today, knowing that so much of what will play out will hinge on this first session, given that Surrey still are in arrears, Middlesex now have 4 wickets. And 4 big ones too, 4 international players. Bamba probing away at off stump, this time coming down the slope rather than that outswinger we've seen beat the outside edge a couple of times. Good bowling. Smith gets down the other end. He's on 3. It's 108 for 4 at the end of the 38th over.
Woodstock Cricket have been producing award-winning cricket bats matched with their classy soft goods, luggage and accessories. Woodstock Cricket really do tick all the boxes. Get in touch with Woodstock Cricket at info@woodstockcricket.co.uk.
I'm just trying to work out the mechanics of finding out whether 3 matches have had the first wicket fall on the first ball of the day. I mean,
Izzy,
I'm sure there are many.
this is the database. This is the magical database that Andrew Sampson and Rick Finlay work from. Another master statistician. Andy Zoltzman, I think, works with that as well. Oh, again, past the edge. Murtagh, he started so well. They have categories they can search by. They have columns in their spreadsheets and their databases that boggle the eyes.
Where the algorithm comes into play, I guess, something like that. I don't know. It's magic as far as I'm concerned, and it's one of those where you don't want to find out how the sausages are made. You kind of want to keep it as this elusive magic. Let me dream. Yeah,
one of my jobs in the Australian summer is occasionally acting as a stand-in statistician on the Test cricket. Murtagh right on the money again.
That sounds daunting.
Well, it is. I sort of bounce between calling and sort of extra stats and so on. And the first season that we were on air, it was with Andrew Sampson doing that role. And in effect, I took his seat only because he couldn't come out to Australia that year. He had other commitments with TMS. But yes, that was especially daunting, knowing that I was very limited in what I could find compared to what they were conditioned to, the audience, the previous season.
Yeah, that warranted certainly on your entrance a be nice, please.
Yes. I think people understood. Good carry there from Murtagh as well. So it's a nice combination, movement and carry. The waiting cordon of White, Robson and Anderson staggered there alongside Simpson, who's already been in the game. A straightforward take when Burns was dismissed. First ball of the morning. If you're just joining the coverage 15 minutes late, might be expecting a couple of runs to be added, something like that. Not so. Action from the outset at headquarters this weekend. Looking forward to continuing the conversation with our audience on YouTube through the weekend as well. Really enjoying the back and forth yesterday, especially in some of the quieter passages of play. Not a quiet passage right now, of course. A lot of action going on, but we'll try and keep an eye on the comments. Twitter as well, Middlesex_CCC, and you can find Izzy and myself on that platform too. Tag us in. A late leave there from Smith, but a good one.
Just feels like a bit more zip in the bowling today. And I don't know. I mean, it's certainly, I think in the sunshine, it's a few degrees warmer out there. And I don't know, it's a pitch hardened up or something. It just feels as though it's coming through a little bit more speedily. Maybe it's the effort from the bowlers. It could be a combination of factors, but it looks good. It feels good from a Middlesex perspective.
Yeah, nice big roll in the morning. Can do wonders for a pitch. Oh, that's an even closer leave. So Murtagh's gone away, in. The latter two both left through to the gloves of Simpson, but not far away from that off stump. Murtagh, none for 20 from 13. But playing his role. 6 the deficit, 108 for 4. So that's the next milestone for Surrey. Get in the black. From there, they can start thinking about building a lead. But folks, the last of the international batsmen that Surrey have at their disposal, their top 5 all test players or have been test players. In Stoneman, Burns, Hashim Amla, Ollie Pope and Folks, the wicketkeeper batting at 5 in this Surrey lineup. It's the first time we see Bamber go full today, or really full, and Folks was unable to beat mid-on. And after that, we, of course, Smith, who's in form, the young man, made 100 last week, and the two hard-hitting, shall we say, all-rounders at 7 and 8, J. Clark and R. Clark.
Yeah, I think the feeling though is that once this partnership's broken, it's, you might elicit a flurry of runs from that low order, but nothing too precocious, too awful from Middlesex perspective. I think, you get these two out or break this partnership, and then you really feel you've got your tails up.
Yeah, that's right. This part, it's such a lot of cricket to come, isn't there? We return back 96 over days and so on. So there's no hurry, of course, for either side here. There's a result in the offing either way. But as far as setting it up, when Surrey arrived here this morning, it was all about folks riding with Burns and getting to lunch. Maybe they're 90 ahead, or something like that. And then it's Smith, Clark, and Clark might be able to come out and play a more enterprising hand. Now, if folks were to fall or Smith were to fall in the next half an hour or 45 minutes, they wouldn't be in a position to do such a thing.
No, and I know that's not dismissing at all the calibre of batting to come. It's just a different nature, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. They play different roles. So the top 5 is stacked with test players. The number 6, the swingman, if you like, in Smith, who's just at the start of his career, but of course will be pushing for higher honours in the future, I'm sure. 7 and 8, the more battle-hardened all-rounders, and then 9, 10, 11, it's a weak tail. If Topley's batting 9, and that's no reflection on the work I'm sure he's been putting into his batting, but he's got more professional wickets than he's got professional runs. He's the number 9. And then Roach, who we expected to bat 9, is at 10. And, of course, Amar Verdi, who hasn't got a particularly good record with the bat, is the obvious number 11.
So he's the not-out batter in the previous innings. So
True, that's true. Bamber completes his over. He's bowled 8. 2 for 24. 2 of those maidens, including the one he just sent down. 108 for 4 the score. So Surrey still behind by 6. Folks 16. Smith 3. I was reading your column this morning, Izzy, in the most recent edition of Wisden Cricket Monthly.
Oh yes, do buy a copy and read the magazine. Everybody should.
Support cricket publishing generally,
exactly.
I say. Interesting looking at the idea of the women's game not only growing on the field, but also in coaching ranks. As we've seen with Sarah Taylor in recent weeks. Murtagh starts a new over. Bang on it to Smith, who defends.
Yeah, I guess for listeners that haven't read it, which shame on you, obviously. I'm sort of advocating for more women to be involved in behind-the-scenes roles, not in men's cricket sport, and more men to be involved in women's. Vice versa. It's almost they should just be the best candidates for the biggest matches and the biggest roles. And it's funny actually. This morning we were talking about Stuart Law coming in as the coach from an outside perspective.
Well played. That'll be the first boundary of the day. Smith given some width there from Murtagh, leaning onto the front foot, timing it through cover point where there is a gap, and it is a short boundary. 112 for 4. They're 2 runs away from pulling level. Smith moved to 7.
I guess there's a question of have we in the past been too narrow in defining what an outside perspective is? Stuart Law's come from a different country. He's coached at international men's level with the West Indies. But actually, you look at someone like Mark Robinson, who has gone from Sussex men's head coach to
not far away at all there. Deflection into the cordon.
To England women's coach, where there's no really red ball cricket there, and then gone back now. Of course, he's Warwickshire head coach, and he's really credited the women's game with sort of just learning a different skill set. It's not even just being around women, and I think this is the same thing. You want to have that that fluidity between the games. You can learn experience them. At the moment, I think there's the hierarchy, the dynamic is sort of women's cricket is seen as the stepping stone to roles in men's cricket, and I understand that. I get that. I think that's probably part of the development of the game. You could argue as journalists we benefited from that as well. I mean, that's how I guess I got my into sports journalism, was through covering or being a women's player in the first and foremost. But I actually think that we're at the stage now where it's professional at both levels of the game. So by definition, you need professionals coaching it, administering it, commentating on it. And I think that should happen, in journalism and media. It always really surprises me that when we have England women's games, you quite often then only see the female producers of a television setup or a radio set, and then you're just like, well, there's no difference in that aspect of the game. There's literally no difference in the technical aspects of being a producer or doing a technical bit behind some wires to the men's game, and it's just this kind of these lazy assumptions. And I don't think that's necessarily that often here in the UK. It's changed dramatically over the past few years, but I think there are hidden areas of the game that there's just no reason why men, women, different nationalities, different races, ethnicities. Obviously, there's a massive problem in the game at the moment with black coaches, and I think there's so much that can be looked into.
Murtagh completes his over, 41 gone. Surrey 112 for 4, 2 away from abolishing their deficit. Folks is 16, Smith is 7. Surrey lost 1 wicket this morning. First ball, that of Rory Burns, caught behind for 54 from the bowling of Ethan Bamber as they go away to their first hand sanitisation break of the day. So 6 overs gone, 41 in the innings. Yeah, I mean, I echo all of your sentiment, of course, in covering the women's game as we've done together for a long period of time now. It feels as though the natural next step is that there are more men in women's cricket, but the reverse as well, that there are more women in men's cricket. And there's sort of a... And it does, I think, that when we saw the Women's World Cup played in Australia last year, I mean, the fact that someone like, take Nasser Hussain is a good example. The last couple of major women's tournaments, he's been such an important part of the rating those competitions and treating it exactly the same way that he would treat a men's World Cup or a men's Ashes Test.
And they're absolutely, and there's some really vocal supporters on the Ian Bishop as well has been really talking about women's Test cricket, for example, and then Rob Key. I mean, Sky have been very, very good. Rob Key has always covered women's cricket as well.
Yeah, I think that's right. So that there's this commitment to both games from a number of publishers and broadcasters, and being able to see moving seamlessly from one to the other. Mark Robinson, when he took over the England women back in 2016, when he first took that team over, he was able to see it with fresh eyes in much the same way that we're talking about Stuart Law.
Exactly.
And that was the catalyst for a clear out, wasn't it? I mean,
of course.
A couple of retirements that he facilitated almost immediately, which weren't popular.
Yeah.
You press fast forward 12 months and they're world champions here at Lord's.
And I was going to say,
what a moment that was.
In a way, you needed the kind of somebody who'd had a experience of coaching, the calibre, the pedigree almost of experienced men first-class cricket, to have the confidence to essentially oust Charlotte Edwards, who led the country for 15 years and been extremely successful in doing so. But I would just go back to that point on journalism. I think that media, especially the broadcast media, actually, that's really far progressed. That's the most progressed of the different fields. But it is the coaching, the administrators, the people at the top making the decisions at the ECB, for example. And this isn't just about women. This is, as I said, racial as well, and different countries, different different perspectives is good. It strengthens the game. It strengthens the men's game. It strengthens the women's game. To have more voices to be able to discuss it, to be able to consider things that maybe you or I'm very much a white middle class person. It's sort of okay. I'm a woman, so to bring a different perspective in that respect, but that's a narrow part of it.
Finds the inside edge there. Bamber again able to hit the seam and move it into the right-hander. He shaped it away from folks as well this morning. He moves to 17. It's 113 for 4. One run away from that 114 barrier, which will bring the teams level.
But I don't think this is a controversial opinion. I think it's something that sometimes it's just pointing it out, because sometimes you just don't think about it. That's what I found is quite often, my changes in attitude or sort of thinking come from not necessarily having been opposed to a certain way before, but just not having realised.
That's the away swinger. So Bamber goes off cutter, out swinger. He's got a deep bag of tricks, this young man. Past the blade of Smith.
Who's the chief executive of the WA Cricket? Has been
Christina Matthews.
Yeah, and she was one of the first really who's been there for ages.
And she would have a claim at some point to be the big boss of the whole thing.
Yeah,
I would say.
Yeah.
She's been an outstanding administrator in New South Wales and WA.
Yeah, it's things like that, and you just think. Ooh.
End of the over. 42 gone. Surrey 113 for 4.
Woodstock Cricket have been producing award. Woodstock Cricket have been producing award-winning cricket bats matched with their classy soft goods, luggage and accessories. Woodstock Cricket really do tick all the boxes. Get in touch with Woodstock Cricket at info@woodstockcricket.co.uk.
114's the first landmark for Surrey this morning. Unfortunately for the visitors, though, that is without their captain Rory Burns, who was out first ball of the day. Caught behind a Bamber.
I wonder if this will elicit a change in the bowling. Bamber's had a spurt. Whether we'll see Toby Rowland-Jones come on from the pavilion end.
2 slips still in place. And it's exactly where it's gone. To second slip. Sam Robson makes no mistake. Tim Murtagh gets the important wicket of Ben Folkes. He falls for 17. And 1 run shy of parity. Surrey have lost their 5th wicket. It's 113 for 5.
Unbelievable to say it, really. That's Tim Murtagh's first wicket. I mean, it really has been shared around. Bamber's got 2, and then Murtagh, classic really there. Inducing the stroke, trying to drive. And we've seen some really good takes by Robson now. That's his 3rd catch at second slip. He really is. I mean, he dropped a few of the matches beforehand, but in this match, you feel as though that intent, that laser focus is back. And that is a huge wicket. And they're 5 down, Surrey, before they've even reached parity.
Yeah, the job for Surrey this morning was to get to 114 with Burns and Folkes both there. But they both depart before reaching that milestone, which means that Middlesex now have a chance to press home the advantage and run through the Surrey lower order. It was Bamber initially and now Murtagh, both finding the outside edge. Simpson and Robson, the 2 catches. Robson there, that flew quickly to him, straight in the midriff. And after putting a couple of catches down against Somerset, he's been excellent at second slip this week, both in the first and second innings.
Yeah, and it just shows you, doesn't it, the way in which the ball was coming off the turf. It knocked him backwards. He rolled back onto his back, and it was good catch to hold on to it as he hit the ground as well. Cradled it like a baby. And as we were talking about, that top 5 now have been dismissed. And now it's a question of, well, it's going to be a different tempo perhaps, but still not drawn level. And 5 down. This is a really good position for Middlesex.
They really have the opportunity to turn the screws now, Middlesex, to bowl with aggressive fields, knowing full well that Surrey really are a long way behind the game. Jordan Clark's the new man walking out at number 7. We know he can hit the long ball, that's for sure. but the game isn't in a position where he can take those kind of risks, which again is part of why it was so important that Middlesex came out well here. If you have Clark J and Clark R coming out with a healthy lead, then they are able to play a different kind of way, but that won't be called for here, not initially at least. 3 slips for Murtagh. Clark's first ball past the outside edge.
I want to have an alarm bell ringing, a sort of Nino or doot doot doot, because we have a reply from Andrew Sampson, and I don't know, I feel as though I might have asked the unanswerable question in that great stats machine of his and that stats brain. Well. He says, very hard to tell without ball-by-ball data for each game, but, and this is in brackets, proper stats alert. I'll get there in a second.
We've got time, Izzy. Oh, so does Tim Murtagh. Time to be at the outside edge.
But using a binomial distribution and assuming 1 wicket falls every 10 overs, there is a 1 in 2,844 chance that this will happen in 3 out of 9 games. So the conclusion there is very unlikely.
Hang on, what's the denominator there? So 1 out of what?
1 in 2,844 chance.
Let's extrapolate that a bit, shall we? Get your calculator out. Murtagh bowls, it's full and defended. So, how many games per season? So that feels to me like it's a fraction light on. I would have thought that we were sort of more like it might be 1 in every sort of 200,000 games for 3 wickets to fall, rather than 2,000 or so. Or maybe I'm going too far the other way. But how many games would there be in a county season? You're far smarter than I.
I was about to say I'm one of those cricket supporters that can count to 6 because there's usually 6 balls in an over. But as that's changing, I might be stuck.
I reckon you can do it. So there's 14 rounds in the county championship, and there are 18 teams. That doesn't mean we simply multiply 14 by 18, though. It's not quite that straightforward. Okay, Steve Fletcher, comms boss at Middlesex, has done it a different way, a far more straightforward way than I was about to go. Tim Murtagh completes his successful over. Surrey are still 1 run in the red. They're 113 for 5. They've lost Ben Folkes to the veteran seamer, caught at second slip. He was gone for 17. He followed his captain, Rory Burns, back to the pavilion, who nicked off first ball of the day for 54. Middlesex right on top. 2 wickets and 8 runs across the 8 overs this morning.
So let's just say there's 126 matches in a year.
Yeah, so 14 rounds, 9 games around, yeah. 126, right.
Right, and so 2844 divided by 126, that means you'd have to wait 22 and a half years for that to happen.
22 and a half years.
It's rather beautiful, really.
That's all right. That feels a bit better. So 5 times a century this might happen. And it happened today with 3 wickets on the first ball around the Shires. Ethan Bamber, his 4th over of the day. He was the man who took a wicket first ball, but he goes for 4 here. Down the ground, Smith, an attractive stroke, left elbow high in the air as contact was made. That on drive smacks into the rope beneath us here. Into double figures with his 2nd boundary. 117 for 5, and Surrey are in the lead. They're in the lead by 3. The problem, though, for the visitors, they've lost 5 wickets.
So that statistic, you can't even say once in a blue moon, because blue moons come around every 2 or 3 years.
It might be a sort of Halley's Comet reference point there. How Halley's Comet's once every, say, 30 or 40 years, isn't it?
Every 75 years.
Every 75 years, okay. Still.
Close.
We're in the
I
ballpark.
Yeah,
we're in the ballpark. What happens every 20 or so years? Other than this. Or is that an edge? It is! Bamber's done it again. Smith falls for 11. It's 117 for 6, Ethan Bamber. He moved the ball away from the left-handed Burns to start and shapes it away from the right-handed Smith now. He has his third wicket, and Middlesex are well on their way.
This is such brilliant stuff from the youngster. I can't tell you how encouraging this is from a Middlesex long-term perspective. I mean, I know we're supposed to think about it in the now, but when you think about that sort of that tried and tested, the veteran seam bowling attack, to have Bamber be so dangerous and get such big wickets, Stoneman, Folkes, Smith, he's bowled beautifully on the third day's play here, and he's got his reward. This puts Middlesex in a really good position.
Just a faint edge, just held its line, watching the replay back. Brought Smith forward, but we've seen that variation from Bamber today, able to bowl his natural outswinger and then trend down the slope, and catching Smith in two minds there. The talented young right-hander falls for 11. We've had wickets this morning before Surrey got going. First ball, the fourth wicket fell with the score on 105, the fifth with at 113, and the sixth with at 117. They are just 3 runs in the black with just 4 wickets left in hand in the second innings. And really now, Middlesex have the chance to punch the bruise and skittle Surrey before lunch and give themselves a very modest fourth innings chase.
And just look at the nature of those wickets as well. Caught behind LBW to Bamber. That's good bowling. He's really probed the batters. He's made it hard. And this is a young man with a very bright future ahead of him.
He certainly does. 3 for 29 from his 9.5 overs from the pavilion end, Bamber. Clark joins Clark, the older of the two. Ricky, the new man in. There's 3 balls to deal with from this already successful Bamber over. The 3 innings that Bamber has bowled at Lords this year, all of them, well, 3 of the 4, sorry, have netted him 3 wickets. His third 3-fer. And
again, from Middlesex perspective, he seems to enjoy the limelight, taking on the London Derby in the pre-season match against Surrey. He picked up 3 for 15 in the second innings there as well.
Yeah, that's right.
So he's now, what, 3 for 29?
Super consistent.
Yeah.
I mean, it's difficult to get too wrapped up with him as a whole, as far as like when talking him up for higher honours, and I'll return to that in a moment. Bamber bowls wide of the crease here and defended into the onside by Clark down to mid-on, purely on account of the fact that he doesn't bowl at that same pace that you normally see from international bowlers, and he isn't that same kind of size. But I measure that against and temper that against the fact that we have seen bowlers at international level do well, like him in the last decade. Vernon Philander, Mohammad Abbas stand out as 2.
And especially in red ball cricket. And again,
yes,
another wonderful, encouraging thing for those of us that enjoy the red ball part of the game.
The end of a successful over. 117 for 6. Bamber has 3 for 29. Both Clarks are yet to get off the mark. So yeah, I think it's an interesting conversation, because he's a young man and got a long way to go in the game. That's absolutely clear. But in terms of his ambition, I suppose there'll need to be, in order for him to progress, an acceptance, I suppose, that he does what he does exceptionally well. And if there's a need for it and a want for it, then he's got to do it better than anybody. Because they're always going to be looking at having a very fast bowler in test teams. And England are blessed with Archer, Wood and Stone at the moment on that front. Saw Garton bowling exceptionally fast on day 1 as well in this round. Mercer starts a fresh over. But yes, I suppose in that post-Anderson Broad world, that's not to say those two don't push it up towards 90 mile an hour as well on occasion. Anderson was able to hit 90 in India. Broad does fairly regularly at home.
And it's not to say that he won't put on a yard of pace either. I mean, he is 22.
Could. Yeah, he could. I suppose it's whether he'll be perennially underrated because of the fact that he doesn't get it up to that part of the radar. And again, as he says himself, that's why he needs to do everything else exceptionally well. He needs to move it both ways. He needs to be consistent. He needs to be super fit. And he's all of those three things at the moment.
Shades of the Sam Curran in his effectiveness as well. The way he bowls, the stature.
Yep, can see that. Sam Curran brings an awful lot, I suppose, being left arm. Very good option at number 8.
Batting part of it as well, but just in the way he, his stature, the trajectory, the speed in which he bowls, and is obviously extremely effective as well. You can see Bamber in his bowling at least fulfilling that kind of role.
Beautiful morning here again. Lovely shot there from one of our 3 manned cameras around the ground, in addition to the 2 stationary cameras at either end. Shot out through extra cover, bisects the 2 fielders in. Jordan Clark gets off the mark, moving Surrey along to 121 for 6. That leads 7. They're really lucky to be served by all these cameras. It's been fantastic over the first 2 rounds here at Lords. The team behind the scenes doing a brilliant job.
It's amazing how quickly the technology has progressed in a way, or at least we've made use of the technology. We talked about the static cameras at both ends not that long ago, and now it's the norm. Well, I would say that this is a particularly good setup, of course, but we're talking about those 9 county championship games across the day, across each round. Such a lovely offering to a county cricket fan.
Just fantastic. End of the Murta over, 121 for 6. The lead is 7. And of course, our enhanced stream here at Middlesex today is supported by Woodstock Cricket, changing the way people buy cricket equipment. Thank you to them. Having these extra cameras, the investment made by the club to give this service at Lords through the season. As much as I enjoyed the charms of being at Radlett with you last year, Izzy, this is a bit different again, and we're grateful to be here and can't wait to have everybody with us here in the ground later in the season.
Yeah, there are many good days of summer ahead. I think, of course, there were some comments on the social media, maybe even on the video as well yesterday, about the idea of why can't there be fans here now, and you've got the pilot sort of studies happening in some indoor events. But it's one of those frustrating things that common sense you'd say, oh yes, of course we should. It's easily you can fit in a socially distanced crowd, but I guess the nature of the pandemic, the nature of COVID, there is a process. We'll get there. And I realise I'm sitting here at Lords saying this, but there are so many better days ahead that we've got to remember those.
Yeah, the only spectators just there on the boundary line, the players and support staff. Amber keeping Ricky Clark honest yet to get off the mark. Stuart Law was down there watching on. He might have even waved to the camera there, Stuart.
Remember that this time last year, the cricket ball was being seen as the vector of disease, and now you flip it on its head. Cricket almost is the best game to be played in these conditions. So, yes, better days ahead, and I cannot wait.
The vector of disease. That'll be a phrase that we will never forget. Of course, that was in the context of whether club cricket could return.
Yeah.
Recreational cricket.
I don't know whether I should admit it or not, but I may or may not have a T-shirt printed with that on. That exact quote.
It was the obvious place to go when I was writing about 2020 for The Guardian at the end of last year, and sort of the more amusing parts of the season, and the vector of disease was right up there as number 1. Two slips for Bamber. Defending is Clark again, having to play with respect. Of course, that second slip has been in action this morning. Nice sharp chance from Sam Robson. seeing the two veteran fast bowlers having a chin wag there. Toby Rowland-Jones and Tim Murtagh. They've played so much cricket together here at headquarters. Currently at mid-wicket and mid-on respectively. I'm sure we'll see Rowland-Jones soon to follow Bamber at the end of this excellent spell. See Becca Garrard in the comments here saying, cannot wait to get to the Oval on the 20th of May to see a live game. Great stuff. Of course, there's that phased return of crowds that we'll see playing out. The Test match here at Lords is part of that between England and New Zealand, the third week of June. Cutting well to get off the mark there is Clark. In fact, he didn't hit it quite as well as it looks on our monitor. Just gets a single. He'll retain the strike. 122 for 6. The lead is 8. Jordan Clark 4, Ricky Clark 1. I wonder whether that last delivery, fraction short, might be incentive enough for Peter Hanscom to give Bamber a rest and get Rowland-Jones on. He'll be champing at the bit to get on for the first time today. And then from the nursery end, it'll be, I suppose, either Luke Holman, the leg spinner, if they want to go in that direction, or Martin Anderson, who took a very important wicket in the final half an hour yesterday, finding the outside edge of Ollie Pope just as he was really going through the gears. In many respects, a turning point in the build-up to this third day.
Yeah, that was one that was completely against the run of play. You felt as though Pope and Burns looked very much in together.
Nice steer there from Ricky Clark. Soft hands. We'll get a couple. Max Holden does the tidying up in front of us in the tavern stand. 124 for 6 now the score. Clark the elder moves to 3. The lead is into double figures. I see Mark Church from the BBC to our left taking a seat on the balcony. A rather forlorn figure at the moment.
Contemplating.
The way that Surrey have performed so far this morning. Couldn't even rise a reaction out of him. Looking straight ahead of the pitch, as is Tim Murtagh on the spot. All those famous parts of Lords, the MCC logo. You'll be in the MCC later in the year, Isabel, with your flashing your membership card and pulling up a seat when you're not working.
Yeah, my bacon and egg blazer. And
can you take me as your guest? How does it work with bringing guests in?
Oh, so test match is not going to happen.
Okay.
Many people want to go, and they're all members.
3 slips.
But there are lots of stands where there are rover tickets available where you can bring in a guest. You'd have to usurp my dad, though, in the pecking order. That's an important relationship. I'm just going to put it out there.
Yes, he's a major stakeholder, shall we say. Maybe I can blag my way in to sit with you.
No, but the pavilion certainly during county matches, and that you can bring in guests then. Such a very lucky, very privileged to be part of it. But it's also one of those you think of in the context of great London clubs, many of them men's clubs, of course, gentlemen's clubs, etc. But you know, I almost feel a bit guilty about, you can sneak into the MCC. I say sneak in, but you can do it through playing cricket, which is how I did it. It took me, I think, 4 years instead of however long.
It is definitely
relation.
Anyone who comes to England to play cricket, it's something that I advise them to do.
Yeah.
If you can find a way to, it's 3 seasons, isn't it? 10 games.
Yeah, I think it's slightly different for the men and the women. I mean, and you have to play a high caliber. I'm not saying I'm a great cricketer, but you have to play a reasonably good standard.
I think the fact that you played international cricket and played a lot of county cricket means that you were able to, rack up those games. But for recreational cricketers, that there is so much cricket the MCC does play.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very, very active club. I mean, every week there's dozens of games going on, whether it be against schools, whether it be against roaming counties, whether it be, I think there's a match against parliamentarians at one point as well.
Here's Tim Murtagh to the short run up, by the way. Easy, I know you like it when Tim just goes off 3 paces. The slips come forward 1 step. Straight through to the gloves of Simpson to finish. Cagey as ever, Tim Murtagh. He's been in the book this morning. 1 for 30 from 17, his analysis. 124 for 6 the score. The lead is 10.
Oh, look who I can see taking his cap and jumper off.
As foreshadowed, it's going to be a change from the pavilion end. And it will be Toby Roland Jones, who took 1 for 25 yesterday. Picked up a wicket with his first ball. Hashim Amla trapped in front, leg before wicket for the second time in the game to complete a pair. As we learnt through our comment section yesterday, is his second pair for Surrey, the first of which was in 2013 against Sussex, which feels like a lifetime ago in cricket terms.
Really interesting comment actually from Richard Miller on social media, talking about the value, the benefit of live streams at the cricket.
Roland Jones's first ball of the day to Jordan Clark is down the leg side.
Yes, Richard says, can we have this stream every year? For those of us who live miles away and don't sadly get to games as much as we'd like, it's a wonderful service, and it opens the game up, doesn't it? And it's a really good point. It'll be interesting to see once everything reverts, whether these kind of things will stay, because yeah, in many ways it's way more accessible. Yeah, it's an interesting one.
Really full from Roland Jones, second up, driven out towards point no run. And I suppose this is where county cricket may have felt a fraction inaccessible pre-streaming. I mean, of course, there's been this outstanding radio service provided over the last 6 seasons, 7 seasons now. But if you're not there and you can't sort of be at the ground, then actually seeing it with your own eyes makes a massive difference. And sure, we wish there were crowds and so on here at the moment, and there will be soon enough. But over the 2 pandemic seasons, so 2020 last year with the Bob Willis Trophy and the Blast, and this year for the first portion of the county championship where there's no crowds, I hope that one legacy of this time is that it has meant that clubs have invested in their streams. It has meant that it's been more of a priority from the ECB, and that will continue once crowds return, and it will give the county game a chance to grow and find new audiences, not just in England but around the world as well. And he bowls him! Roland Jones, his first over of the morning, and it brings an immediate reward. Skittling Jordan Clark for 4. Surrey are reduced to 124 for 7. Their lead is just 10, and they are careering towards a 3-day defeat.
Hanscom, the man with the golden hand, I don't know, the golden cap, the golden captaincy, everything he turns to. We saw this. That was the brilliance in dismissing Amla yesterday, was getting Roland Jones on and getting him, I think it was the first ball of his over. And this one was comprehensive. He's changing it. He's confident in his bowlers. He trusts them. He knows when to do it. I'm not saying it's all Hanscom. Of course, it's the bowlers that are doing it. But you feel as though they've got a plan. They're executing it well. And Surrey now 124 for 7. They now only lead by 10 runs.
By my count, that's the 5th time in the game where Hanscom's made a bowling change and it's brought an immediate wicket. So, in his debut for the club, he's calling the shots nicely. No runs with the bat, but at the moment, given that Middlesex started the season with 2 terrible defeats really, of course a game they should have won against Somerset, and then they ran headfirst into Mohammed Abbas down at the Rose Bowl last week. But to back up against a test quality team like Surrey, putting themselves in this situation, sure, the job's not done yet. We saw what Somerset were able to do with their last couple of wickets here in round 1. And the lead is 10. But with Reece Topley walking to the middle at number 9, as we mentioned before, a man with a first-class average south of 5, and barely more than 100 first-class runs to his name. They will fancy their chances of going through this Surrey lower order and wrapping this up in a clinical fashion.
Yeah, I don't want to put too much onus on Hanscom, because I think that the integral part of that is the fact that you've got this calibre of bowlers, this mixture as well, this depth from Middlesex, and it's always been a feature of this Middlesex side, is that their seam bowling attack has been so strong.
Roland Jones to the crease. And Topley solid in defence to begin.
But the difficult part is always getting everyone firing and fit at the same time. And you feel that the fact that Tom Helmers had to go to a different county. You're keeping Finn out of the side as well. I mean, that's absurd in many respects.
It's been said for years, isn't it, that Middlesex have got such a quality seam attack. Why can't they do more with it, I suppose? And the focus has been on the batting side of the equation. Roland Jones completes a superb first over for him. Immediately in the book for a second time. A wicket maiden, 2 for 25 from 10 overs, Toby Roland Jones. 124 for 7 the score. The lead's 10. Ricky Clark's on 3. Reece Topley yet to score. And yes, the fact that
Sorry,
yesterday,
I meant Harris, James Harris going back to Glamorgan, not Helm.
Yeah, sorry, yes, of course.
Yeah.
Harris, Helm out of the side, Harris at Glamorgan playing this week on that temporary loan. But with such a strong bowling group, or fast bowling group, which Bamber was barely involved in last year. Of course, he was the bowler only used once, and the returning Roland Jones, who didn't play last season at all. And the fact that they have, in this game anyway, held their nerve with the bat after a poor start. Murtagh past the outside edge. A long spell this. He's bowled all morning so far. Bowled for an hour from the nursery end.
We were rudely interrupted by Toby Roland Jones uprooting the middle stump of Clark in that chat about the video coverage, the live streams of cricket. And I just want to round that off by saying that the one thing, interestingly, that might keep it going, and having seen the value of this coverage, I was listening this morning to the Sky Sports Cricket podcast where they're talking about the change in selectors' role at the England level.
3 slips. Oh, so close to the off stump. Hands on head from Murtagh. After 2 outswingers, one to finish his previous over and one to start his 18th. He goes with the off cutter up the slope, and that couldn't have been more than a couple of inches away from taking the off stump out of the ground.
Is that now there's no longer a head selector role, it's a network of scouts, and the fact that you can see such high quality coverage that isn't just a fixed camera will really benefit those roles. Of course, they also made the salient point that there's nothing quite like being at a game, because you see, not just about the on-field stuff. I think so much of selection now is about making sure you've got the right characters involved, the right preparation or whatever, and seeing how a team goes about that or an individual goes about their game. But it certainly helps being able, and that might be one of the reasons why they dispensed with the idea of a head selector, is the fact that you can sort of use the tools that you've got, the technology you've got, to assist in that.
Yeah, I think there'll be a lot of words around the legacy of the Smith era, and I suppose his departure here has been chalked up to the advances that have been made in technology, and streaming would be part of that. As you say, the ability to see more, absorb more of the game. But it's interesting that they have, it's a departure, isn't it? There's always been a chief selector or chairman of selectors.
It's a really interesting podcast to listen to, because I think it was certainly mixed views as to the merits of this change.
Because there has been that funnel of accountability, hasn't there? I mean, when you look at the way that test teams are picked, Ed Smith has carried the can for it, not just test teams, but teams across the board. And James Taylor has been his deputy. Now he moves to that chief scout, head scout role, sorry. And Chris Silverwood takes on the responsibility. I
was going to say,
which is like most football teams have that.
Right, and the point being made in this podcast isn't necessarily my sort of original views, but football managers, they change quite a lot.
Yes.
Haven't got a particularly long tenure.
Murtagh finishes another tip-top over, 124 for 7. He's been immaculate this morning. 18 overs, 1 for 30.
Woodstock Cricket have been producing award-winning cricket bats matched with their classy soft goods, luggage and accessories. Woodstock Cricket really do tick all the boxes. Get in touch with Woodstock Cricket at info@woodstockcricket.co.uk.
with Surrey in the lead by 10 runs, having lost 3 wickets in the first hour. I'll pass it over to Izzy. Indeed, 4 wickets in the first hour. Missed one. Over to you, Izzy, to see whether you can pick up the final 3, maybe.
Well, there were so many, just lost count. The wickets falling. But yes, managers, football managers, and I think that's it. Is that if you're a player, or even a head coach, as Silverwood is, how much can you critique a player and their technique and things, knowing that you're going to have, you're also making the decision as to whether they're going to stay or go. All past the outside edge, full delivery there from Roland Jones, and also carrying the responsibility, the opprobrium that might elicit should he make the wrong decision, not just as the coach, the technical aspects, but the player personnel. It's a heavy weight to carry, but then you want that control of your team as captain, as coach. It's going to be very interesting to see. Here comes Roland Jones, wide outside off stump, and a big flash of the bat. Topley is off the mark, and I think he may be off the mark with a boundary. Is it going to shore up? It's not. Crawls over, 4 runs then to the Burley Seamer, 128 for 7. No, the selectors, it's a talking point, isn't it?
It's also fun.
Yeah.
The debate around selection. I mean, it's a national pastime, isn't it? Certainly at this time of year. Growing up, it was always the idea that the second toughest job in Australia was Prime Minister. The toughest was the captain of the Australian men's cricket team. I think after that, on the podium was the chairman of selectors. In terms of the scrutiny, different here a little bit because it's not quite as pervasive cricket as it is in Oz, but nonetheless, amongst cricket people, we all think we could be chairman of selectors, don't we?
I think that's the case in every sport. It's a bit too straight there. A couple of leg byes, I think. Yeah, umpires signals to the scorer's box. 2 leg byes down to fine leg. It's one of those roles, a bit like umpiring. I've always thought that you only ever hear about them when something goes wrong. It's a tough gig in that respect.
I was gratified to see that the ICC are going to stick with umpire's call for DRS. I thought I was the last person in the cricket media holding the line on that position. I think I'd lost almost everybody before reading another column in the magazine this morning.
Full again, well dug out there by Topley. It's quite interesting. So Topley was the one that was bowling a really full length from Surrey, and now he's being served a bit of his own medicine from Toby Roland Jones. Both those are the 2 bowlers really that have bowled it very deep into the crease.
Yeah, and I think with Roland Jones, we've reflected on it throughout the course of the game, really, that he is bowling a decidedly fuller line than when he was previously a mainstay with Middlesex, and that was the direction of Stuart Law, that he would bowl fuller, and he's done it so well. He's made that shift.
He has indeed. Final ball means that we've had 50 overs of this Surrey second innings. They've only managed 130, but more to the point, they're 7 wickets down and only 16 runs ahead.
On matters of DRS, so the ICC have agreed to maintain, at least for now, umpire's call as it's been. So in other words, it won't simply be a case of everything hitting the stumps is out, and the alternative, which is clipping, no longer. They're keeping the status quo. They've gone away from either of the extremes. But Andrew Miller wrote a fabulous piece in Wisdom Cricket Monthly, making the case that I've been roaring about on Twitter for a few months.
Good man.
Far more eloquent way than I could.
Murtagh continues. Oh, right to the pad. Surely, yes. Finger goes up straight away. And that is the 5th wicket of this morning's play. We've just ticked into the 2nd hour, and my goodness, it couldn't have started better, really, for Middlesex. Surrey find themselves 130 for 8.
Surrey have lost 5 for 25 this morning. From bad to worse. And where they are in this game, just 16 runs ahead. Middlesex, well, provided they stick the landing and finish the job here with Roach and Verdi to come. They'll have every opportunity to do just that with Topley, the not-out man. Clark, the last of the recognised batsmen. They're in a very strong position to have other plans this afternoon.
Absolutely. This game is continuing at quite a pace. One of the Clarks, both Clarks now dismissed, really into the tail. It's a matter really, you'd imagine, for Middlesex of when, not if. A lot of smiles around that Middlesex bowling cohort. Murtagh with his second wicket, and the nature of the wickets, all of them, LBW, caught behind or slips.
And he just bowls all day. I mean, we talk about the fitness of Bamber and his ability to just charge in from the pavilion end. Well, Tim Murtagh has now been bowling for 68 minutes. He's bowled every ball from the nursery end this morning. And that first wicket was so important, pouched at second slip. I mean, at that exact juncture that he was able to see the back of Ben Foakes, one of the two England players who were removed in the first 45 minutes this morning. And now to do it again, to trap the experienced Ricky Clark in front, a man who has made so many first-class hundreds across the journey. And now with him gone, it is very much the bowlers. Roach following Topley and then Verdi. It's a weak tail. Middlesex 2 wickets away. A fine performance with the ball.
Oh, bouncer first up to Kamar Roach coming into the crease. Wow, well, that's a sign of intent there. That's the one. Up goes the finger from the umpire. Yeah, we think we knew that one.
That's a bit fruity. We don't see Tim Murtagh roll in and bowl a bumper often these days.
Got you very excited there.
Oh, I was extremely excited at seeing that. No concerns, of course. It's all part of it.
Whoa, past the outside edge. That died a little bit as well. Bouncing just in front of the tumbling keeper.
It would almost feel appropriate if Peter Hanscom made a change at the nursery end, and that immediately brought 2 wickets to finish it off, given the way that Hanscom's, as we say, had the Midas touch. We have a comment on Twitter here from Campoon saying that maybe Hanscom should be player of the match based on how many of his changes have just been spot on. I think that'll almost certainly, from a Middlesex perspective, would have to go to Sam Robson.
I just like the idea of having
a low-scoring game.
Having scored a duck and getting the
Yes.
player of the match.
Kind of part of the charm of long-form cricket, isn't it? That even though he didn't make runs, he was out third ball. Reece Topley hitting his off bail, lovely bit of bowling. That Hanscom has had a big influence on the game.
I once got player of the match for scoring 2 runs and dropping a catch by virtue of being the only woman there. I feel if that's allowed, then Hanscom as captain. 3 slips. Oh, another probing line again. Roach onto it.
So Murtagh has 6 wickets in the game. Roland Jones has 5. Bamber has 4. Holman and Anderson the other 2 for Middlesex. And of course, Topley took 4 for Surrey, although it's unlikely he'll get much of a chance to influence the 4th innings unless something against the flow of play happens here with the last 2 Surrey wickets. Robson's 95 and White 72.
Nicely left. 51 overs gone, 130 for 8, as it is, well, the first hour of play is gone. We've seen a flurry of wickets here, and it might necessitate a few of our viewers to have to turn elsewhere shortly.
Stick with us for now, though. Don't.
No,
give into
not
this temptation
yet.
in the short term. You've got to.
But I might
watch
go
this
around
as natural conclusion.
around the county grounds to
Okay.
give an update. Oh yeah, don't. I mean, this is the thrill, especially if you're a Middlesex fan. But have a look at how some of the other games are progressing. So Surrey and Middlesex, of course, in Group 2. As Roland Jones continues from the pavilion end. Oh, we had a little flicker at that, didn't he, Topley? Leicestershire currently 109 for 4 in their second innings. So they lead by 24 runs against Somerset. So you feel Somerset are in a good position there. Table leaders. Roland Jones forward. No run, sorry, not table leaders at all. Just thinking, harking back to last year, because the top of the table clash is Hampshire, Gloucestershire, as far as Group 2 are concerned, and Gloucestershire currently 156 for 3, chasing Hampshire's 470. So they trail Gloucestershire do by 314 runs down at the Rose Bowl. Oh, he's bowled him. Off stump. Out the ground. Or was that the middle stump out the ground as well? Just probing forward there, Topley. Tall man, toothpick in his hands, couldn't get bat on it. Lovely looking delivery there from Roland Jones. And he bowls him for 4.
Stumps everywhere. One out of the ground, one splayed back. That's a lovely sight for any fast bowler. Roland Jones picks up his 3rd, and Middlesex 1 wicket away from finishing their job. They've taken 6 for 25 this morning. Surrey resumed at 105 for 3. It's now 130 for 9. Ethan Bamber got the party started. First ball of the day, finding the outside edge of Rory Burns at the top of that screen for 54. And it never got any better for the visitors. And now Roland Jones has the chance to finish the job. He has 4 deliveries remaining in this over. No, sorry, 3 deliveries remaining in this over. And with Amar Verdi, the man in at number 11, given the way that Middlesex have bowled this morning, not least Roland Jones, you'd give him every chance of finishing it here.
Well, Adam, you the one that talked about having to bowl the fuller length. Well, that's something that Roland Jones has been working on wicket to wicket, and both his wickets this morning being bowled. His one yesterday to get Amla LBW.
Yep.
So it just shows you that's exactly what he's been concentrating on, and that's exactly what's been working.
And it can't be easy. It's not to say that Roland Jones hasn't bowled full and found edges and targeted stumps in his career in the past, but it's I suppose more the stock delivery side of things, that he's gone from being an enforcer of sorts to really now giving himself a chance to hit the stumps and to hit the pads and to move the ball around. It is a different role, and the fact that he's had a season off due to that shoulder injury, missing the entirety of the Bob Willis Trophy, which must have been so frustrating. But returning here, he's played the first 3 games. He's taken 6 wickets in this match, picked up 4 in the first at Lord's, so 10 wickets across 4 innings here at his home ground. A chance to make it 11 here with 3 deliveries to bowl at Verdi to number 11. Yeah, it really has been a fine return.
Right then, what have we got? 3 balls to play with. Oh, and his first one is full. Nicely played by Verdi. 2 slips behind the keeper there. Thanks to Robin on Twitter, at Dick Darwin 32, who said, of course pointed out, actually, I've heard this before, with reference to discussion on scoring a duck, not bowling, and winning player of the match. John Abrahams did it in a Benson and Hedges Cup final. That was it, yes, in Lord's in 1984 for his captaincy, despite not bowling and, yes, getting a duck. Shorter off the hips, or an attempt off the hips there from Verdi, no run.
I suppose it's something you think of more in limited overs cricket, but across a 4-day game, Hanscom has, 3-day games will be over in 3 regardless of where it goes now. Hanscom has been influential on each of the 3 days with his bowling changes. And his fields as well. He's been excellent.
Final ball of this over. Oh, and they've gone up for LBW, and the umpire's finger goes up too. That is the end of the Surrey innings. 130 all out. Their lead now only 16. We've only just ticked over the quarter of an hour into the second hour's play on day 3. Roland Jones has 4. It's been a comprehensive bowling display by Middlesex. And well, they're going to wrap it up surely in the next half hour or so.
Yeah, 17 to win. Appropriate that Toby Rowland-Jones picked up the last 2 wickets, given the way that he's bowled throughout the course of this match. He finishes with 4 for 29. The destroyer this morning with 3 of the 7 wickets to fall. Surrey this morning losing 7, count them, 7 for 25. Quite a remarkable analysis when you consider they returned with Ben Foakes and Rory Burns, 2 English players, or 2 England players I should say, in the middle, and Burns batting so nicely last night especially too. The Bamber was able to find his outside edge with the first ball of the morning. Izzy, we talked about the way that this young man, this young 22-year-old bowls such a consistent line and length. First ball, pitching on off stump, angling away, hitting the seam. Burns had to play, and it landed in the gloves of Simpson after kissing the edge, and that's what got them going.
I always feel a little bit silly having said this morning, an hour and a half ago, standing outside and saying this could be a really intriguing day's play, and Surrey might go and extend the total beyond 150, and it could be a really tricky chase for Middlesex. All of this in theory, but absolutely smashed to smithereens, seeing 7 wickets fall in a space of an hour and 15 minutes really. It's been a really good morning. We talked about the optimism, the skip in the step of the Middlesex side before they walked onto the pitch, and this has just shown you why. They believed in themselves, and they're on the cusp of a very convincing victory over Surrey. Yeah,
a convincing, clinical and indeed famous one. They all are in the London Derby, especially when Middlesex came into this fixture having been beaten badly in their first 2 games of County Championship season 2021. So Bamber gets the first wicket of the morning, and that gets them going. Rory Burns the first to fall. Jamie Smith was the next to go, leg before wicket to Ethan Bamber for 11. Ben Foakes fell to Tim Murtagh for 17, caught in the cordon by Sam Robson. Toby Rowland-Jones into the attack, a wicket in his first over, just as it was yesterday, skittling Jordan Clark. Then Tim Murtagh trapped Ricky Clark for 3. Reece Topley was also bowled by Rowland-Jones, stumps everywhere for 4 and the last man out, Amar Verdi, for a 3-ball duck. Wickets falling today on 105, 113, 117, 124, 130, 130, 130. 3 for none to finish the job. Middlesex needs 17 runs to win. We'll come back in about 5 minutes from now for that. Great to have the support of our sponsors for the enhanced live stream today. Woodstock Cricket, always putting the needs of the consumer first.
Woodstock Cricket have been producing award-winning cricket bats matched with their classy soft goods, luggage and accessories. Woodstock Cricket really do tick all the boxes. Get in touch with Woodstock Cricket at info@woodstockcricket.co.uk.
Players return. Middlesex needs 17 to win. Extraordinary 80 minutes of cricket this morning. 7 for 25 Middlesex took, led by their veteran champion Tim Murtagh, who finishes with match figures of 34 overs, 17 maidens, 6 for 58. In terms of the figures for the second innings overall rather. Toby Rowland-Jones 4 for 29 from 12. Ethan Bamber 3 for 30 from 11. And the aforementioned Murtagh 2 for 30 from 19. 1 wicket for Martin Anderson, the important wicket of Ollie Pope before the close of play last night. And Luke Holman none for 16. Max Holden, Sam Robson have the chance to finish the job in the half an hour or so until the lunch interval. Izzy Westbury, and of course, even if we get to 1 o'clock, they'll extend the session, so it'll be over soon enough with 17 the target.
Don't know how I'd feel as an opening batter in this situation, because you're just expected to finish it off, aren't you? But you've still got to contend with some pretty hostile bowling from some very capable Surrey bowlers.
It's an important mini session for Max Holden, I suppose, isn't it? There's no avoiding the fact that he has been light on runs so far this season, yet to make a meaningful contribution, and was out cheaply in the first innings, the first to fall for 3. Caught in the cordon from the bowling of Topley. It'll be Holden facing the first ball from Kemo Roach. 4 slips, Gully as well. And Izzy, you can take it away and call the last 17 runs, I say.
Nice and wide of the wicket. Easy leave. Yeah, Max Holden really playing for his position on this side. Very capable batter. Seasons at Northants on loan. A couple of very good white ball seasons as well. But really looking to support Robson at the top of that order. Full and through. Lovely delivery. And that's it. This is good bowling. This is world-class bowling. Yes, there's only 16 runs. Yes, Middlesex will very, very likely win, but still a test for an opening batter. Oh, lovely drive, expansive shot, 2-4 outside off. That's one way to go about it. Platters into the advertising hoarding. That was a convincing shot there from Max Holden. 4 for no wicket.
That'll feel good. Yeah, going through those match figures, 7 for 70 for Toby Rowland-Jones. He bowled 12 in the second innings and 14 in the first. So 7 for 70 from 26 to go with Murtagh's 6 for 58 from 34. Hanscom back to veterans, and they delivered in both innings.
Oh, he's flashed at that one as well. Didn't quite connect. But you look at that slip cordon. 4 slips in the gully. He's not going to die trying, Holden.
And that wouldn't have looked good had he dragged it back on, it must be said, but it's a long way wide of the off stump. Ended up at mid-on. Shanked, I think that is the formal terminology, isn't it?
Defended or pushed even. Just wide of the man who was already at a very wide mid-off / extra cover, really. Takes the strike. Robson is going to face his first ball then from Roach.
So with this win, Middlesex will leapfrog both Surrey and Leicestershire. In all probability, that is. It's unclear how Somerset and Leicestershire will play out, but at the very least they'll be off the bottom, passing Surrey.
Roach to Robson. It's on the pads, going down leg, and that'll end the first over then. Middlesex 5 for no wicket. They need 12 to win.
Of course, the top 2 teams make it through to the second stage in Division 1. We're a long way from that, of course. There are 10 games, home and away fixtures, so a long way to go in the first phase of it, but worth keeping an eye on it after 3 games. So Somerset are well ahead in the contest at Grace Road. They made 318 in response to Leicestershire's 233, and they've got Leicestershire 127 for 5 in the second innings, so well placed to record a victory there.
Pushed onto his back foot there, Max Holden.
And if that is the case, it'll mean that Middlesex would go ahead of Surrey and Leicestershire in one fell swoop, which will put them in 4th position. That's what we expect, unless something out of the ordinary now takes place at Leicestershire on Saturday afternoon and Sunday. But that seems to be the way this is trending. And Hampshire and Gloucestershire well ahead already, having won both of their first 2 games.
Pushed onto his back foot once more. We've just been informed, we were discussing earlier about membership of the MCC and sort of sneaking in as a playing member. Well, if you do it the conventional way, I'm told by Stephen Fletcher that it's now 29 years on the waiting list. So yes, if you can sneak in as a playing member, I would thoroughly endorse it. Here comes Topley. Well played.
You know, I desperately regret not having the presence of mind to do this about 10 years ago when I first started playing over here, to try and get through that way, but not to be.
Well played, pushed into a very vacant area outside the off stump between point and extra cover.
Of course, if you're watching our feed, you'll automatically be bumped over to another game when this ends. So I'm not quite sure how that bit works, but we received a number of new watchers to the Somerset game in round 1 at the very end as other games were ending around the country. So
oh, what fun, yes.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a lottery, I guess. I wonder where they'll direct traffic. Where would you want to go? Maybe tell us in the comments and we can repeat it on air and convince the ECB to go in that direction.
Expansive drive, stopped at backward point.
It may not work that way, of course. It might be a randomised process, but still.
County cricket streams are like a box of chocolates. You never know which one you're going to get.
Just going to leave that alone.
Wise man. 4 slips in place, stacking field, 2 at catching as well, in front of the bat on the leg side. This is played off the hips and down to fine leg. And that is 4 runs, meaning that the deficit now is just 7. Robson on the board.
A nice little red inker for Robson if they can get there. Likewise Holden. Doesn't mean a tremendous amount, but if you fall in a chase like this, it can be quite frustrating in terms of the numbers, and we know how much of a game, or how much statistics can inform the thinking around the game, I should say. And Robson's had such a great start to the season. 165 in the first round. A couple of starts last week at Hampshire. Did the hard work there, and 95 yesterday here. Yeah, nice little 9 not out or something like that will go a treat.
Here comes Roach around the wicket. This is played into the leg side. And a good run between the wickets. Yep, real intent there from the Middlesex duo.
And as for Holden, I suppose it's much the same. It's not really about the runs here. It's about being not out and knowing that he'll go down to Taunton next week with something more than a double failure, or had they not been required to bat a second time, it would have just been that one dismissal. But the chance here to stick the landing and finish it off.
Roach pushed into the covers, lent on it there from Robson. We saw him do that so often in his first innings, and it might just be hauled in front of the boundary rope. Indeed it is, glimmering in the sunshine, but they're going to come back for 3.
We're not going to get much time to go through who should be player of the match. I think there's some pretty strong candidates in Roland, Jones and Murtagh on the basis of what they were able to do after the captain bowled first on morning 1. Easy to forget that Robson really did back them in by bowling on a glorious day. One of only 2 teams to win the toss and elect to bowl on Thursday.
And I think certainly if you look at sort of partnerships and the lack of from the Surrey batters. Oh, glorious stroke. Glorious stroke. Through extra cover. And that is the winning shot of the match. A comprehensive victory there for Middlesex. They're 18 for no wicket. Holden is unbeaten on 11. And it may only be 11, but much needed in terms of confidence going into the next game against Somerset. Robson there on 7 on the back of a fabulous innings of 95 in the first innings. And Middlesex have destroyed Surrey in this London derby. And they've done it inside 2.5 days.
Inside 2.5 days and 2.5 overs to get the 17 runs they needed. Finishing 18 for none, as you say. A glorious cover drive from Max Holden, 11 not out. Middlesex are on the board. They get their first win of season 2021. As we said before, Peter Hanscom won the toss and bowled and backed in his bowlers, and they did such a fine job on the first day to skittle Surrey for 154. That's what set it up as they make their way from the field here, Surrey. We came here this morning, Izzy, thinking, well, if they can be 3 or 4 down at lunch and give themselves a base, we could have quite the finish here at some stage tomorrow on Sunday. But instead, it's all over in 96 minutes after the resumption this morning, and 10 of that was an innings changeover. Surrey losing 7 for 25 through the course of the first 80 minutes this morning. Murtagh, Bamber, Roland Jones, all influential, integral in leaving just 17 runs on the board to collect in that 4th innings. Holden 11 not out, Robson 7 not out. Lovely boundaries there from Holden, which will build his confidence, as you say, Izzy. The players and umpires bumping fists and bumping elbows, as is the custom at the moment. But a big response from Middlesex after that poor performance last week at the Rose Bowl. They are on the board.
Yeah, and to think they're in such a commanding position against Somerset in that first match is a little bit of a what might have been. We talked about the predictions going into the county championship. Middlesex, again, constantly are always predicted to be there or thereabouts. Whether it was before, pre-COVID time, trying to get back into the first division. But they have got a very strong side, and it's just about stringing all those disciplines together, providing support to the lone batter who's going at the moment. It's Robson, who really is the leading run scorer for this side. But you felt as though the bowling certainly came into its own. You had contributions, extremely important contributions from the youngsters, from Ethan Bamber, from Martin Anderson, but then of course that well-known attack of Roland Jones, who didn't feature at all in the Bob Willis Trophy last year, who's had horrid injury streak, and then Tim Murtagh, of course, the ever-present. It's been a really encouraging performance there for Middlesex.
Yeah, appropriate that the last shots we got on field there were Tim Murtagh and Ethan Bamber. Murtagh finishing with 6 for 58 match figures from 34 overs. 34 overs, 17 maidens, 6 for 58. Toby Rowland-Jones took 7 for 70, including 4 in the second innings. Ethan Bamber, 3 in the second innings. But the crucial breakthrough this morning, first delivery of the day, Rory Burns edges behind without adding to their overnight total. They were on 105 for 3 when we came back. That was 105 for 4 after 1 ball, and that set the trend.
Yeah, and Ethan Bamber, well, he's not just a prospect, he's the real deal. He's really performing for Middlesex. And to think that you've got, Helm, Harris and Finn waiting in the wings, this is really encouraging going through the season. 9 rounds of county championship fixtures, a lot of time still to play with. It's been a disappointing start in those first 2 losses, but they're going back to Somerset in that one of those quirks of the fixtures. Having played Somerset, you feel only very, very recently, they can really make a mark here and make a statement.
Yeah, so wickets this morning falling on 105, 113, 117, 124, 130, 130, 130. It all happened very quickly, courtesy of Bamber, who picked up 3 for 30 from 11 overs, 2 of those wickets today and 1 yesterday, of course, collecting the wicket of Mark Stoneman. Tim Murtagh, 2 for 30 from 19 with 9 maidens. Toby Rowland-Jones, 4 for 29 from 12 overs, 4 maidens. But Izzy, importantly, both times he was brought into the attack yesterday and today, he picked up a wicket almost immediately. Yeah,
and actually it was, so not only was it Amler, and then we had that wicket this morning as well, but I think Folkes was bowled, or caught behind it in fact, by Toby Rowland-Jones off the first ball from his spell from the nursery end. So that's 3 times we've seen breakthroughs off the first ball of a sort of a stage of Toby Rowland-Jones bowling, which is remarkable, really.
Yeah, that's right, and that kind of goes again to the performance of Peter Hanscom as captain. Dismissed for a duck, walking in at number 4 there late on day 1, and you can imagine how his shoulders would have dropped. But as far as the leadership, both in the first innings, winning the toss, bowled call, bowlers back him up, but the way he marshalled the troops, and then again in the second innings with a number of bowling changes which brought an immediate reward. A great way to start his 2-year tenure here at Lords.
Yeah, absolutely. Having just flown in from Australia just a couple of weeks ago, I feel he's very settled already in the Middlesex dressing room, and now he's just got to turn his hand to scoring a few runs with the bat. That's a small matter of, and until we're away.
So they get off the mark, Izzy, and next week down to Taunton, who, well, Somerset did lose at Taunton last week, of course, and
first time in 27 years against Gloucestershire.
And Somerset were brilliant through the 3rd and 4th day here a couple of weeks ago. But it's a side, I suppose, Middlesex will go down there knowing they can compete with them. Yes, Somerset very much a Division 1 team in the old language before the recalibration of the Bob Willis Trophy in the divisional system this year. But it's not as though they're going down to Somerset thinking it'll be a nightmare. This is a game they can compete in, and they have started the season well here at Lords. They should have won in round 1.
Yeah, and the way in which that Leicestershire-Somerset match is going at the moment, you feel as if Somerset are heading for a reasonable victory over the Division 2 side of Leicestershire. But Middlesex will go with their tails up. Somerset will go with their tails up, and also still stinging, I think, from the Gloucestershire defeat. Yeah. So it could be, well, it certainly will be an interesting match-up, and I can't wait.
And in a low-scoring game here, Middlesex did make 268 in their first inning. So much attention on the bowlers, and indeed on Hanscom as well, with what we talked about before. But Sam Robson, 95 out of 268 top scoring, and the 133 run stand he put on with Robbie White after they did fall to 16 for 3 on that first afternoon, or that first evening I should say. White making 72. That ended up being the crucial partnership of this game. So in terms of first innings runs, that being a problem, certainly at Hampshire last week and last year in the Bob Willis Trophy, they can build on that. That's a building block and some confidence for them.
Yeah, and it was lovely actually this morning to be able to interview Robbie White, and he certainly talked about supporting that lone batter. It needs to be more than just one. And Robbie White, at the young age that he is, early 20s, he wants to take on that role. And if he does, and if Holden gets back in the runs, of course Eskenazi's out of the side at the moment. Hanscom, of course, is a world-class batter. So again, the tools are there. They've got to make use of them.
And as we come towards the end of our live enhanced stream for the week, a final thank you to both of our match sponsors, Woodstock Cricket and Lucidica IT, for their support, making all of this as possible, what we're doing here possible on the enhanced live stream at Middlesex and at Lords throughout the season of 2021. We can't wait to be back here in a couple of weeks, and we'll do so following a Middlesex team who started the season poorly but have backed up magnificently here, winning the London Derby by 10 wickets. Thank you for everybody who's listened and commented and sent tweets and been on the YouTube chat. Izzy, it's been fantastic engaging the audience through the course of the last 2.5 days.
It's been a privilege, so thank you, Colo, and thank you, Middlesex, and I'm sorry for putting on a wonderful display, and we'll be with you again in a couple of weeks.
That we will. Middlesex the big winners as we say goodbye from Lords.
Woodstock Cricket have been producing award-winning cricket bats matched with their classy soft goods, luggage and accessories. Woodstock Cricket really do tick all the boxes. Get in touch with Woodstock Cricket at info@woodstockcricket.co.uk.